Hello BookTube, my name is Dennis and you're watching The Intellectual Reads. Today I'm back to do my first review of 2021 and hopefully with this review join back into the community and have a fruitful year of making videos and being part of the community on all different platforms. So without further ado, let's talk about the first book that I'll be reviewing this year, which is The Hearing Trumpet. This is a book by the writer Leonora Carrington, and it arrived in my mailbox at the beginning of the year thanks to NYRB and their subscription service, which I am a part of, and hence every month I get a new book from them. And I try to stay on top of their books only because I have so many unread books that I, in the last year, have been making a valid effort not to acquire more books that will end up on my bookshelves and collect dust. Henceforth, the only way I can justify my subscription service is by reading each book that comes to me within that month. So let's get on to the review, and hopefully I can convince you that you should really pick this book up. I will start off with a quick synopsis of the story. The Hearing Trumpet is a story that follows a 92-year-old protagonist, Marion Leatherby. Marion Leatherby lives with her son and his family on an estate in Mexico. Her daily tasks include watching over 2 cats, taking care of a hen, and daily walks to visit her friend Clarissa. Clarissa is an eccentric person, and we learn of her eccentricity right off the bat because on the first visit we find Clarissa writing letters to people from overseas whose names she finds inside of yellow pages, and based on their names she deduces whole stories and whole plot lines, and hence writes them letters as if those stories were real. On this visit that we follow Marion Leatherby taking, Clarissa hands her a hearing trumpet which gives her back the sense of hearing, and hence if she puts this hearing trumpet to her ear, she can hear conversations. This is our first kind of experience within the story of magical realism, other than Marion Leatherby herself, who can take long walks at the age of 92, which seems rather peculiar. But the story has a kind of family saga sort of beginning, until Marion Leatherby overhears a conversation of her sons, and soon after the son and his wife make a decision to send Marion Leatherby to an old people's home. The justification behind this decision is that Marion Leatherby does not have her wits about her, and the reader can clearly see that she does. The second reason is that they want to transform her room into a garage at the back of the house so that their son can work on motorcycles. Marion Leatherby realizes her position as a 92-year-old lady and doesn't put up much of a fight. After this beginning, I'd say 1/4 of the first beginning of the book, Marion Leatherby begins her life at this religiously run old people's home, which oddly enough only houses women. This is when the story picks up as we meet all the different eccentric ladies who live there, and it just gets really, really wacky. And I don't want to spoil it in any way other than to tell you that throughout this story you will find Mexico deep in snow. You will discover a woman who's half wolf, half man. Also within the story there's another story that we read depicting the life of an abbess who is ancient, and her undertakings in running a monastery or a church, and her undertakings in being the head of the church in Spain, as well as on her many different travels, her drug-induced experiences, and it all leads to just a crazy, wacky, unbelievable plotline that has so much to offer and so much to intrigue the reader that you can't stop turning the pages, because it never dwells on one point too long, but rather shines in its many different avenues that it'll take you. It's like a wild, exciting, crazy ride that at the end of the ride you'll be like, whew. And I think it's good to mention here that the afterword by Olga Torchuk really tied up the story for me and made me realize that, in essence, what Leonora Carrington was writing is not so much just a wild, right, exciting story, but she was offering us her critique on the way society handles elderly, and her critique about the way the church in its foundation has suppressed women, and how the laws that underline religion put women in a subordinate position, and therefore even no matter how much society kind of moves forward, these are laws that are imprinted from childhood inside religious texts. And so it's a feminist story, but it's done in such a way that you don't realize it until you reflect back on it and you go, aha, so that's what she was trying to say. And I think that's the importance of the afterword here, because Olga Torchuk, a Nobel Prize winning author, is able to really center our attention around these themes. And therefore, after reading the story, you can kind of go back and really see that this is more than just a story, but rather has some really insightful sort of literary aspects to it. Let me quickly discuss Leonora Carrington with you and bring her to your attention. Leonora Carrington, I'll quickly read you a little bit about her. She was born in Lancashire, England. She lived from 1917 to 2011. She dated Max Ernst. Who was a renowned Surrealist artist. She was an artist herself. Her paintings are still in galleries, and she has a lot of great artworks. I'll try and include some right here. She finally married a photographer and lived out the remaining of her life in Mexico with 2 sons. Even in Mexico, she was always in the circle of Surrealist artists. She published 1 novel, this novel. She also has 2 short story collections, as well as a memoir. The memoir is titled Down Below, and it's described as a memoir of madness. It's definitely one that I would love to read. After having read this book and seeing what a tight grip she has on her artistry, I think that Down Below would be a spectacular book to read from an artist's point of view on madness, especially an artist that has such an ability to weave stories together. Another interesting aspect about her is that she was brought up by a nanny. So here, she was raised on fantastical folk tales told to her by an Irish nanny. And I think her surrealism, which is even present in this book, because this book has different pictures here that she drew as part of the story. Which add a lot to the story, because her surrealist drawings go so well together with her magical realism mind. And so this book comes off not so much as a fairy tale or a surrealist painting, but rather mixing kind of these 2 different platforms. You start to feel like you're in a psychedelic dream. And I think that's kind of, if somebody can induce a psychedelic dream within your mind just from writing a story, I think that's kind of the highest compliment I could pay a person. So I will wrap this review up right here and tell you that this is one of the most surprising books, and that having picked up a book like this, not knowing anything about the author, and realizing that it was magical realism, I had my doubts, because I haven't really dwelled into magical realism myself, other than Jorge Luis Borges and another writer, Sigmund Kruszinski, who I discovered last year thanks to NYRB as well. So I wasn't expecting much from this, but this book wowed me. This book also made me once again confirm that I made a really good decision by subscribing to NYRB subscription services for this being my second year now. And finally, it also made me excited to read some more magical realism. And so I'm thinking this year maybe 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Marquez, and another book that my mother has been trying to get me to read for ages now, and that is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. So yeah, I'm definitely going to add those two books onto the to-be-read pile for this year. And if you haven't really ever dwelled into magical realism as a reader, but always wanted to, and were intimidated by the larger text, I think this story, which comes in at about 210 pages, would be a really, really great start. And I almost guarantee you that you wouldn't be disappointed. Again, I haven't made many videos last year and even this year, and I usually make them when books really, really give me this feeling that I want to kind of get on the mountain and scream their praise at the top of it. And I'm glad that this book has gotten me back onto this platform, and I'm very thankful to NYRB, and I'm glad to share it with you. So for what it's worth, it comes with my highest recommendation. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your week, or whatever. You get the point. If you've read this or you're enticed to read it, please comment. Let's have a chat. And till next time, this is Intellectual Reads, and my name is Dennis.